Hi everybody, it's Bill Brockrider, aka Bill Wood, and Eva Moore, and we are doing a video piece today to introduce people to some new information that I've received. It's going to be some very hard to hear information and something that has been wildly prepped for disinfo, and
I think that at the same time, there's been always this background of wonderment and questioning, lingering. So it's an interesting topic we have to share with everyone. Thanks for your patience, and thanks for being diligent, trying to figure out where this video was. So here it is.
Just to give everybody some background, this information came from the same source that has been directing me and giving me guidance throughout this process, and it is the same source that has led me on the path to be in discussions with Project Camelot originally and David Wilcock, and as of late Drake, and it's going to be some pretty earth-shattering information, so let's get into it. The information that I got centered around the mass arrests and what's going to be occurring, not necessarily details of who's on the list and who's not, but one individual in particular was addressed, and I was a little overwhelmed to get the information myself. So I'll kind of lay it all out and give you the argument, and everybody can use their own discernment to figure out if this rings true for everybody. I've got my notes here, so I'm going to get started. A critical event just occurred in the past couple of weeks. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Secret Service sex scandal in Colombia, where the Secret Service prep team and several high-ranking members of the military were basically outed in the public for using prostitutes and drinking and a whole bunch of nefarious stuff. Let me just say that that was very much the public story. What was happening on behind the scenes was a lot different, however. Basically, this was kind of the final stage in a very long process that President Obama has been undertaking since he took office in 2008. He promised to be the president of change and wanted to make a difference in this world, and was very determined when he took office to do this. But I think he was impressed to find out that even the office of the president couldn't make the changes and didn't have the control necessary to fulfill those promises right out of the gate. We've had a tremendous amount of scandal and disinformation put out about the president, and a lot of information that undermines the mission that he was trying to undertake. Originally started out with Obamacare and the birth certificate, and getting people kind of off track of what needed to be done. I think soon after that, the president figured out that this was going to be a much longer, harder road than he anticipated, and so he has been working very diligently to undertake this mission. What most people don't understand is that the things that have been put out in the news, the steps that have been taken have been wildly changed as far as their information and content to distract people from what was really going on. I think the first thing to point out about Obamacare and the changes that undermine that effort were the Republican Party's amendment to instill the individual mandate of that legislation. And I am sure that that legislation was, or that amendment was enacted to put a wrench in the works of what would later be determined and wildly publicized as a problem with the whole system. What isn't reported is the fact that it was the Senate and the House of Representatives, the Republicans in the middle of it, that were kind of causing the problems to undermine the legislation. The legislation did undermine a very powerful group of individuals in Washington, not the Senate, not the House, and not the presidency. It was the lobbying groups for the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies who stood to lose billions by having healthcare run properly. And by run properly, I mean that right now our healthcare system is run to maximize the profits for the companies involved in healthcare. Including pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies. The way that the healthcare system should be run is to maximize the health of all the citizens of America. Unfortunately, that would undermine also the profits of the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies. So now the legislation is popularly painted as Obamacare, and yet it didn't turn out anything close to what he was trying to enact. So we move on to the subject of NDAA. It's also a piece of legislation that was created and produced by the Senate and the House of Representatives. But I do need to point out that even though the news and media have wildly publicized this as something that would strip the individual rights of citizens, it does do something else. It makes it so the cabal members, the corporations, the industries, and the money that control this country and moreover the world could be arrested and could be held and wouldn't be able to use their billions of dollars and army of lawyers to get them out of it. Another new development that's come along is the executive order for national defense resource preparedness. Also something that is critical to being able to keep the country and the world secure during the process of the mass arrests. Certainly, we need to understand that during this process, all of the utilities, the internet, the electricity, the gas, the water, the sewage, need to stay up and running. And with mass hysteria, panics, and riots, that would definitely undermine the efforts that are trying to be involved, and people would quickly lose sight of what was really going on, which was the dark forces and the industries and the companies that from behind the scenes control the House, the Senate, the branch of the judiciary under the Supreme Court, all the way down to the local court levels, could be co-opted and run simply because of the money that they produce. Citizens United was another situation which allowed industries and companies to get the rights of citizens. And that is not the way it's supposed to be, and I think we're all familiar with that. I think the easiest way for everybody to understand things is that well, the presidency, as powerful a position as it is, I think most people misunderstand that he should be able to do anything and make things right, and that is not possible. So the presidency and his advisors and the people that he surrounds himself with undertook a very interesting mission to try to organize things in the span of 4 years to be able to enact some changes in this nation and hopefully have those changes spread out to the world. And the things that are being talked about now are those changes coming into effect. The latest step in this process was the newest executive order, which rejoined the U.S. in the International Criminal Court. And made it so that the U.S. would be enforcing international laws as opposed to just U.S. laws. And I think everybody needs to understand how important that is to the process, because we have plenty of forces outside of this country that need to be taken care of in this process, not just inside the United States, but outside. So a lot of what's been happening inside of the presidency has seemed destructive and, moreover, cooperative for the dark forces and the companies and industries that promote war and continue the enslavement of the human race. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, President Obama's cards are kind of out and on the table now. And final steps are being made to be able to demonstrate that. So if you don't want to trust me, if you don't want to believe me, that's very much okay, because the proof is in the pudding, and some things are going to be going down very shortly that people need to understand are going to be steps that the media and companies and industries are going to try to co-opt and corrupt and change the public's opinion to keep us in fear and keep us afraid of these changes and make us believe that the changes that are about to take place are going to be ones that turn us into a society that is ruled by this dark overlord, President Obama. And I just have been given all the evidence to say that that is not going to be the case. He is going to come out. He is going to be very vocal very soon about the changes that are going to take place, and it's going to be some night and day differences. The first step that everybody kind of needs to pay attention to is the NATO summit in Chicago and the G8 summit at Camp David. Those will be the initial arenas where the controlling influences in government throughout the world are going to be called to the carpet, and they're going to be told that the game's over and changes are going to happen, and there's nothing that can be done about it, and they need to let go and give up. The mass resignations that everybody has been aware of as of late are the people that have been warned and decided that they're done and they want to get out of the fight, and they don't want to be part of the system of control anymore. Certainly there is a lot of evidence to back this up if you choose to take a look at it. When I was back in 2008, when President Obama got elected, I had a thought in my mind of how he was an idiot for even thinking about being the president, because that role would be just impossible, that the task that he was thinking about undertaking. And certainly that's proven true. He's been vilified on many, many levels by the media and industry, and co-opting, how do I want to say this,
in regards to that,
good-natured citizens that wanted to see change and were duped into believing that he was the reason that change wasn't going to happen. Massive amounts of effort have been put into this, but over and over again we've seen some obvious results of what that undertaking has taken place. The biggest understanding is that since 2009, we've heard the doom and gloom message over and over and over again. We've gotten several instances throughout the past 3 years of possibilities of a destructive future. but it's safe to say that there hasn't been any major disasters, there hasn't been any major false flags, there have been no terrorist attacks, and we have, for all intents and purposes, done nothing more than go into this slow dragging down of effort. But that system has to change, and we're all very aware that that system has to change. And now it seems that now that the presidency no longer can participate in the illusion to gather evidence and to root out all of the involved members, because I can assure everybody that a proper investigation and peeling back the layers was an absolute necessity to this process. We couldn't just say, you know, it was this group of people and leave it at that. We couldn't just say that these people are causing all the problems and leave part of the cancer in society to regrow and turn things upside down once again. So a tremendous amount of effort has been done to go along with the path that the industries and companies and the individuals behind the scenes that have been controlling this system for hundreds of years are all rooted out, and that everybody can see exactly what's taken place. The true history of the world and of the United States could come out, and the truth had to be understood. Evidence had to be gathered. The proof needed to be necessary to convince everybody that these are the changes that are happening. And it has taken a substantial amount of time, a lot longer than most of us would have liked to have taken.
Okay, so in effect what you're saying is the information that you were given, that you feel you vetted, and that has proven itself to be a viable source, one that you, although at times are overwhelmed by, that the source itself has proven valid, and that when you received the information, what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago?
Yeah, on Wednesday,
that in fact you were taken back by this information.
Oh yes, I was not prepared. I actually had to take a step back and decide if, you know, getting on a YouTube video and not doing what they requested, but taking a step that was necessary and giving the option of doing it would be, if I could do it, quite frankly. It's one thing to get on the radio and talk about, you know, good things and positive outcomes. It's another thing entirely to stand up, put yourself in the public eye, and say things that have been previously put out as information, and to stand in the face of it all and say, we have been duped for years.
Right. And so in effect, just so that everybody's clear, and because the nature of this information is a bit overwhelming for you to even organize and figure out how to then come across accurately, Bill had asked me to be a part of this, just to ask him some questions and try to, if I could, perceive how the listeners are going to interpret what he's saying, and maybe ask some of the questions that some of the viewers right now are having. So Wednesday you received some information. Are you able to talk a little bit about how you received this, or is that something you're not comfortable?
Back in 2008, I was asked by an individual who I can't disclose the identity of or the nature of, but I was asked if I really wanted to participate in the change that needed to take place in the country or not. And I was informed that I could make a difference if I chose to, but it wasn't going to be an easy road.
Okay, so this was in '08. At the time, where were you?
I was living in Las Vegas.
Okay, and so at this time, you're not comfortable saying who this person was?
No.
Do you, in fact, know who this person was?
I know the identity of the person, but I don't know, name, rank, and serial number.
Okay, and this person kind of threw down the gauntlet and said, look,
Exactly.
kids, you kind of have more going on than you know. I'm going to lay it out for you. Here's some of the opportunities that are at your door.
Yep.
If you're interested, you need to make some changes and be ready for things to come.
Basically, I was informed that there's a potential for me to do a great service and to live up to my oath of office and to do some great service for humanity. And after some initial reservations, I decided to take up the task. And the vetting process has been what I've been living for the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Some promises that were made to me certainly have been fulfilled. Even though the attempts have been more than outrageous to shut me up, put me in jail, and re-shrink my brain,
mm-hmm.
have been vast and obvious, and I have several examples,
mm-hmm.
some of which lately you're very aware of,
mm-hmm.
To get me quiet and put me in a hole again, have failed. And I was promised over a year ago, right after my arrest in Las Vegas, last April, a year ago last April, that I wouldn't ever be arrested again. And
if you were to continue kind of making amends for your conscience for having gone forward and done the job of bombing and the things that had bothered you about your career, you in fact were given an opportunity to live up to the oath that you thought you were taking.
Exactly.
Without a lot of instruction or guidance, it's been kind of...
This has been very much what most people would consider, born experience, where, my expertise and my knowledge, after years and years of what I thought was going to be, a useless effort with my military career, are now being picked up and used. And that honor and that courage and the determination that I had in the military could be used far better than it was in the military.
Okay.
And so
you get this information on Wednesday, and just to clarify, are you able to kind of, in a brief summation, lay out exactly what was said or communicated to you?
Yeah. Basically, shortly after I took up the challenge to do this effort, I set up a very secure source of communication via the internet. Basically, it's the same levels of security and communication that people in very secure positions in the CIA, the NSA, and the Department of Homeland Security use to keep information quiet. It's also the same system that what would be called high-profile hackers and anonymous members and the occupation group used to communicate with each other. Some direction that I can point as to the evidence of this is I don't think most people know that the web address encrypted.google.com exists. But there is a side of the internet that most people don't know exists, and it is one that the government and all the agencies know exists and use quite fluidly, but with the amount of information on the internet, using encrypted communications, flipping VPNs and IPs randomly, and going through this method of communication that's incredibly secure and takes massive amounts of advanced computing time to decrypt and decode. And this communication is always done on a basis where the time it would take to undo the encryption on this communication would be useless by the time that they could do it, which is why I know that when I'm contacted via this channel, that it's secure and it's important to act very quickly, because there's a window of opportunity that will be lost if the information gets uncoded and read by the wrong people.
Okay, so again, can you summarize what the message was?
Basically, the message was that I was given the option to put out a statement about the truth, about the mass arrests and the parties that are going to be involved, and specifically the fact that President Obama has been, even though the media and the news and the people that work in the government and the military and the private industries, the private information industry and the private military industry in particular, work against to dupe people into believing that that the president doesn't have the authority to make the changes that he does, and B, that the changes that have been made are being made at his behest, and he's been co-opted by the dark cabal,
right,
or the people that want to continue to enslave humanity and cause a major disaster and cover up their crimes. It's not going to work, and basically that he's been working on the side of true hope and true change.
Okay.
Even though it hasn't been given the appearance of that, because these powers control industry, they control media, they control the message, and they can spin it any way they want.
Okay, so in effect, to summarize, it is that President Obama enters into office. What his awareness level at that point is, we don't have an exact proof of, but that very quickly he and his advisors understand that he isn't in charge the way he would have hoped.
I think everybody would understand it this way, and this is the way that it was put to me. Certainly the president talked about some very high ideals and some very honorable things that he wanted to do when he took the oath of office. And what he figured out very quickly is that he was going to be stopped.
Okay. Okay, so when you told me this information, my first reaction was, wow, I'm open to hearing what you have to say. And yet, there's been a lot of really scary things that have transpired that would have led me to really question the validity of that information, such as the NDAA and the recent order on Friday for the national defense.
Yep.
So when I asked you these things, that was like the first thing out of my mouth was, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And can you share kind of how you're processing this? Because your first reaction was, I thought that too, and I've been up all night thinking about this.
This was my first reaction as well. And when I asked questions, the answers that I got made sense. As far as the NDAA goes, the president initially, and even stated it publicly, was not happy about the changes with the NDAA. But it's ironic that those changes make it so that these captains of industry and these leaders of companies and
like Soros and
Henry Kissinger and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the people that own this country, quite literally own it, could be arrested just as easily as the average citizen and put into feeding camps without access to, he could, you know, limit their communications and deny them their rights, as they have done to us for so long. And it was impressive to me that it is true that these forces that have been enacted, that have been used to scare the hell out of everybody for so long, could work against the same forces that produced them. Okay, and that's what impressed me so much when I began to question, you know, this information. And all of the pieces were put into place for me to understand.
Okay, so then the next question I had was, okay, sure, and this kind of ties back to his initial interview with Camelot, in that he stated timeline 1 and timeline 2, inevitably whatever is done to create and bring about timeline 2 brings about a paradox that also forwards or allows for timeline 1 to be advanced. So inevitably there's this paradox. I'm like, okay, I can kind of, if I stay open and listen and try to discern, I can see that. You know, but then my next thought was, well, couldn't they just arrest them anyway? Like, if this was what their plan was, couldn't they just do it? And you have to think back when Obama was first elected, perhaps, like Bill started off today saying, is that, yes, maybe, however, it might be more effective if you had somebody in place documenting and under the impression that they were
co-opted,
so that they could execute orders and potentially document where these orders came from, how this all worked from the inner side once they were agreed, co-opted, you know?
And I think everybody could understand if you take a minute and put yourself in the shoes of the president. You take your oath of office, you walk over to the White House your first day, and, you know, within a few months, you figure out that those changes that you expected to make, that you made promised in your campaign, were continuously undermined and continuously derailed. And the industry and the capitalism and the profit making was going to continuously.
The one that stuck out, yeah, when you said it that way, the one that stuck out in my mind is that Obama had, you know, kind of supported the automobile industry, but more specifically, there was solar technology that he got behind, and then all of a sudden it was flipped, and the IRA came in and took it down. Do you remember? There was a solar company.
Right. And
so there's all these like, oh, okay.
There's many things and many ways and many examples of what's happened. And
that was very confusing though. And I just observe, and I always go, well, that's interesting. Take note of that. And then maybe at some point the last thread will connect them, and you can go, okay, So then the next thing you said to me was, well, that's what Columbia was all about.
Well, Columbia was the straw that broke the camel's back. Columbia was the taking down of the members of the Secret Service and the military that were going to get in the way of this change. And that's an important piece, because if you have people in your organization that you know are directly working against you and are in fact there to protect you, you need a way to get those people out.
To shine a light on them.
To shine a light on them, maybe not by not saying something that the media would be quickly overriding and distracting from, but to do it in a way that, quite frankly, Americans are comfortable with.
Okay,
and
so
sex scandal is a good way to, you know, have the sentiment of the American public go, oh, well, had to be done.
Which is interesting and ironic. Didn't you mention something about potentially there was a threat for?
Well, yes. Once the presidency exposed their cards, and the powers that be realized that he wasn't on board and he was about to take them down, I think President Kennedy would come back from the grave and testify that there's a real threat. And that threat needed to be eliminated. And the CIA and the FBI and the Secret Service and the Federal Marshal System and the military needed to be on board and needed to be under control.
Well, and then this goes back to, again, our interview with Drake on Friday, which was we had intended to kind of go into this conversation with Drake, but at that point we realized we really weren't clear on how to present it yet and how we felt. We wanted to take more time to kind of collect ourselves and really get quiet and listen to our inner guidance.
And quite frankly,
we wanted to hear what his...
If Drake was given this choice to undertake this mission, he would have been bringing up this subject and he would have been contacted.
And
there's a reason that I was asked to do it and why I'm taking up the challenge.
And Bill felt it would have been, just so everybody out there that I know was patiently waiting and asking where this video was, understands, Bill felt at that point it wouldn't have been fair to ask Drake to take this on because Bill was the one that was contacted, and you know, if later down the road Drake wants to come back and comment, that would be something we're definitely open and willing to have happen. But at the time, Bill felt it would have been unfair to kind of like unload it on him. So,
but at the same time, I did question him about. I mean, I had this information when I was doing the interview, so I did ask the question.
We were throwing around the idea of going into it.
But he's, you know, what he said during the interview
was enough to give us kind of a feeling of confirmation, because he did make those specific statements that there will be arrests. There'll be a list of people who are arrested and a list of why. There'll be a list of people who people expected to be arrested that aren't, and that information as to why will come out. And there'll be people who people think they know for sure are, you know, like on the bad guy's side that in fact aren't. And so we kind of like, okay, this is falling into the line of what we were.
Now, let me speak very specifically on this. The reality of what's going on and the message of what's going on has been undermined, and the message that you weren't supposed to hear, you haven't heard. The message hasn't gotten out. Anytime the truth got out, it was demolished and discredited and disinfoed to the hills. Certainly when I began talking at the end of January, I experienced that on a level that is completely unbelievable. Why would people take so much time, so much energy, and so much effort to discredit me, the, you know, disinfo guy, from putting out information if it wasn't true? Mm-hmm. So I think I need to express to people that the reason that people are discredited and that, you know, the wave of information is thrown at them to back them down and to keep them from putting out their story, and absolutely unbelievable efforts to use the judicial system to take them out. And
Bill said a good rule of thumb to weed out information that's mostly accurate to that is mostly disinfo is the number of naysayers that get on and try and heckle usually indicates that.
Well, and
I mean, of course, that's not, you can't just use that,
but let's say this.
We're expecting to be heckled.
People, there are people out there, both government agencies and private agencies, that do the exact same job. They hire people to get out there and to muddy the waters and to discredit information and to obscure the truth. And it is a massive industry. It is a huge effort.
So one last thing I'd like to add is, at this point, what is important is perhaps not about who you're going to vote for, or whether or not Obama is the best next president.
We don't even need to get into that.
No, that's not what this is about.
What's going to happen with the elections and the presidency very soon are not going to be what anybody expects.
Well, and that's the thing is, what it's about, this is more about the fact that there is a level of fear around how all of these mass arrests are going to go down. And what brought me peace of mind is almost like this was the next puzzle piece for you to have gotten this information. It was almost like, well, that makes sense how when this change comes, if there's all of these companies that, you know, the water and the gas and the power, and you have Obama taking, you know, legislative steps to try and ensure that these resource companies are going to be maintained. This kind of, as bad as all of these steps have looked, if you think about it from the idea of the paradox and timeline 1, timeline 2, and Bill's first interview, you can kind of see how, wow, there actually might be some really beautiful news in this, and you can almost see how this is possible. Right when if you just stay open to the information, then it's actually really quite exciting.
So let me kind of put down a hypothetical situation and demonstrate to people how this, the basic outline of these steps can go down. With the cooperation of the presidency and all of these measures that exist to take over the country.
Well, and Jack said something about the chief, right?
Chief has to have the power. Well, now the presidency has the power to basically take over the country. The Keenan lawsuit. Liens have been placed against all 12 Federal Reserves and the G7 countries. The president has restored America to the International Criminal Court and international laws. Those steps can be utilized to then enforce those liens. Those liens would destroy the Federal Reserve because they do not have the hard capital currency to repay those judgments. The G7 countries would be destroyed because they do not have the hard capital currency, $5 trillion I think it is, to pay. So the financial industry would be wiped out and would have to be reformed. And a new system would then take it over legally and make it so that a new power structure was put in place in the financial system. And no longer could a small group of people on the planet print all the money that they wanted and use that money to buy things that they can't buy because they don't have to back up that money with anything. At that point, a new system would step in, a system that exists, that's ready to go, and would take control of finances, and then would be able to distribute that money not on a debt basis like has been done in the past, but on a resource basis. And when we use that new system, money would then go to free energy products, humanitarian projects, resource development projects, and reclamation projects. We would then be able to fix the problems that we know exist, that have been created. Nuclear power, it's a disaster. Fukushima, it proved that to us.
And if you look at Lauren Moray's video, she talks about the nuclear issues in the United States and the fact that the storage isn't actually an accurate means to control the side effects of nuclear production, and that we're actually becoming infected our soil and our water from our inaccurate means of storage, and that's something that we need to look at cleaning up in North America.
And another area that we can focus on is war. The reasons for war are not because of bad guys and terrorism and us versus them. It's a resource of fear that is projected upon us. Give me 1 second. A resource of fear that has been projected upon us that has enabled corporations to then go out and make money and co-opt the ideas that they have put out into profiteering. And I guarantee if people in the news got out there and said the truth, which is we're at war so this company and this company and this company can make more money, we wouldn't be going to war. So they had to make up things. And weapons of mass destruction is the one that most people are familiar with. The next most famous reason is terrorism and 9/11. If we knew that terrorism wasn't the cause of 9/11, that 9/11 was a theft, an outright distortion to steal a bunch of resources and money from the country.
And more importantly, consciousness.
And, yeah.
Direct consciousness.
And to push everybody's thinking and everybody's in consciousness in a direction that they wanted it to go.
The shock and awe, and then surrender to what's the solution.
And ever since then, people in America know we've been giving up more and more and more of our rights to combat terrorism, and only lately have we become conscious of the fact that we're not giving up those rights to fight terrorism. We're just giving them up because somebody told us that this was the case. So I want to kind of go into the mass arrests and what's going to be happening. This process is not going to be comfortable. It is going to scare most people because it's going to get them out of their comfort zones and out of their day-to-day lives.
It has the potential. If people are not willing to be open to a paradigm shift.
If people are convinced that this is a takeover of the New World Order and that we need to fight it, it would be a disaster. But steps have been put in place and a level of consciousness has been achieved that leave relative reassurance that there is enough conscious energy and enough good thinking people out there that can explain it to everybody else, along with some education that's going to be taken care of during this process, that effort and the efforts to undermine the changes won't work. So what's happening during the mass arrests? One day you're going to find out, just like on 9/11, you're going to wake up and either get a phone call from your neighbors or your families, or turn on the TV and realize what's happening.
Or the internet.
Or the internet, and it's going to be big. And there's going to be a lot of disinformation. And people are going to be talking and talking and talking and talking. But what's really happening is that the powers that have been controlling and enslaving the human race with fear and disinformation will be taken into custody. And they know it's coming. And they are running scared right now. They are absolutely terrified, doing everything in their power to prevent it. And each day that goes by, they're figuring out there's less and less possibilities of what they can do. So the questions that I want to address is, how do we deal with it personally? My first suggestion is to realize that you've already heard about this, you know what's happening, and you know that this is a necessary step in the changes for humanity. We need to cut out the cancer. We need to get the destructive forces that are working against human consciousness and human evolution out of the picture. They will be put into detention facilities, sequestered away, and their power will be stripped. After that happens, an education system through the television system, through the emergency preparedness means that have been put in place, you're going to hear on every station of every TV what's really going on and what's really the truth. And people are going to be talking about it, and people are going to be on the internet about it. And more importantly, the people that are hearing this video right now are going to be talking about it. And they're going to be able to finally get good information out. There won't be this, you know, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid all the time. It's going to be, this is what happened. Bad guys started World War III. We didn't even know it. They used debt and fear as their weapons. And they have literally bought everything, every resource, every job, every means of making money with their power. And their power came from our fear and our acceptance of this debt-based system.
Which keeps you busy, which keeps you uninformed, which keeps you less able to cope with the amount of truth that you've missed out on.
So, there is going to be this transition period. It is a period where the people that work in the electric companies, the gas companies, the food distribution, water, sewage, those people are going to be very necessary, and they're going to be told first what's happening, what they need to do, how they can help. The military and the police will be utilized to put down any efforts that have been concocted to defeat this system from taking place, to corrupt it and to keep people in fear and keep people enslaved to this debt-based system that everybody's so comfortable with. The way to deal with this system is, if you happen to work for any of this infrastructure industry that will be maintaining the country on a very short period basis, and Drake has said anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, or 2 to 3 days to 2 weeks. The reason for the varying length of time is because we don't know how long it's going to take for people to get rid of all of this bad information and this bad thinking and this bad belief system that we've accepted because it's the way it is for so long, and plug into this new reality and the new belief and the new information of how things are going to work. There is going to be a force that tries to prevent this. That force needs to be addressed. So it's going to take anywhere from 2 to 3 days to 2 weeks. During that time, the best thing that people can do is to support their families, support their friends, and support their communities. To get everybody calm and open and accepting that these changes have been talked about for months and months and months, even though most people aren't aware of them because they get their news from mainstream media, who doesn't talk about it because their paychecks depend on not talking about it. Well, once the shackles are off of mainstream media, they're going to start putting out good information. It will take time for people to hear and then accept this new level of information, because it is huge. Massive amounts of information. 9/11, everything behind it. Wars, terrorism, our perceptions of other countries and their motives and reasons. You know,
the amount of devastation that's happened to our people, the mistreatment of our people, the deaths of soldiers and the families that have been affected by their deaths, the soldiers that have come home who haven't necessarily received any kind of support, and if anything have been, sink or swim in the society of misfunction, disarray, and, really what needs to be mentioned here is that what we need to do is show up for each other and stop being busy and really be present with each other, with our neighbors, with our communities, with our family, and let them know they're not alone.
And it's going to be a very difficult time. Because, no, it's going to be. Because daily routine will shut down. Service industry jobs, banking jobs.
You're talking to a girl that likes it when the electricity is off.
I know.
So
but
potentially.
There is going to be...
If you like camping, you could like it.
There is going to be a shutdown of the normal routine throughout the world. But it's going to be a critically necessary time as well. Because people are going to need to take some time off and concentrate on what's going on. You're going to want to not have to go to work so you can plug into the information that's being put out and get a clear understanding and get some clear information and begin to get your brain wrapped around this level of difference between what you knew before the changes started happening and the way things are going to be after the changes.
Okay, wait, and so even for those that are the best read and most awake, how do you feel that they'll be affected?
I think those people will be affected by the fact that they're going to have to accept
the role of leadership.
The role of leadership.
So their cognitive capacity will be higher.
The things that I can say for sure are the least punishment that will happen to anybody who's participated in any nefarious activities, be it consciously or unconsciously. They will not be allowed in leadership roles. New leaders will have to emerge. People that have been participating and aware of the changes need to step up and need to start educating themselves to have a tremendous weight put on their shoulders, because they're going to be the people that support everybody else in the change. That's leadership. So those people are going to spend most of their time talking to everybody else and saying, no, 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 this is what's happening. Don't listen to, the Chicken Littles. The sky is not falling. Things are going to be fine. Necessary changes are taking effect, but the world isn't ending, and it isn't, the end of the world. It's the beginning of a new world. And that's the position that people who have never seen themselves as leaders are going to have to take up the mantle. So that will be the hardest thing for the people in the know right now to deal with. Our law enforcement system and our military system needs to be reassured that they are the peacekeepers of this transition and not the warriors of this transition. Their efforts will be to keep the peace, to make it so people don't use this situation to profit, quite simply. There will be no riots, there will be no looting, there will be no robbing or taking of other people's resources. if you want to try to do those things, you will be in a jail cell right next to the people who caused all the problems. So it's of everybody's benefit to first know and then B, put out the information that we all need to stay calm. We need to support the military and law enforcement in keeping the peace, and we need to start educating ourselves as to what's really going on.
And this is where staying calm, why it's so important, is because in a state of anxiety or fear, your creative brain, your capacity to be intuitive and creative and problem solve goes down in a state of anxiety and fear. So it's really important to practice visualizing if there is some chaos in and around you, how to go to a place of calmness and inner calmness and connect with your source to get answers to issues that are immediate.
Okay, now I would like to go over some instructions that I have for people that if you take this advice, it will help your life, the life of your family, the life of your friends, and the life of your communities during this transition. The first suggestion that I have is on a regular basis, go shopping, keep your house full of food. Know that there will be a period of time where you may not be able to go to the grocery store, you may not be able to go to the gas station, and you need to depend on yourself to take care of yourself, but also know that there's going to be people out there that are going to need help. So if you have some extra groceries, you're going to be able to work with the other people in the community to help distribute resources to get people through this time. Have efforts been put into effect to guarantee that we'll have enough food and enough water, enough shelter, enough heat to get through this process? Yes. But not relying on those resources makes it easier for the transition to take effect. It makes it so the transition is smoother. So if you can go shopping every 2 to 3 days, stock up, keep your shelves full, realize that there may be a time in the future, in the next month or so, where these things are going to come in handy, you'll be good. If, you know, this is all disinformation garbage, you'll use those groceries eventually, and it's no big deal. So these aren't, you know, crazy steps that I'm asking you to take. Another thing that is a good idea is to keep your vehicles full of fuel. Don't let them get below 3/4 of a tank. If you need the fuel, you'll have it. If you need to travel, if there is any unrest or any reason that you need to travel, you'll be able to do it because you have plenty of resources. Another suggestion is to keep a fair amount of cash on hand, as much as you can afford. Cash in the bank, money in the bank is not going to help you. Your debit card, your credit card, they're not going to work. I'm going to be flat out honest with you. The banking system will shut down. More than likely, cash will still be accepted for resources, for food, for gasoline. And those supplies will be there and be available for purchase for some period of time after changes start to affect. The most important thing that people can do is relax. When these changes start to happen, you knew about it ahead of time. You're prepared, you're ready to undertake these changes, and you know that you can spread the word. Even though people are, you know, getting ready to freak out and run in the streets, you can tell them, hey, no, I knew all about this. This is the way it's going down. I've gotten good information. If you want to check it out, here's some internet links. Yeah. Here's some good information. Get started with this. Very quickly after that, the television, the internet, the ways that we use to get information are going to take over and start the education process.
Well, and a good way to help people relax is to help them get out of their head. And a lot of times we can get caught up in analyzing things. in this, as things start to happen, you can analyze, and you want to stay present in the moment rather than caught up in your head. And the way to do that is to get into your body. A couple of quick ways to do that: have a fire, have people out, have some music playing in the background, talk about it, keep like almost like that movie The Burbs, where they're out of their houses, they're out interacting with each other, and they're supporting each other. They have like a block party.
Block party, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, and have some music going on in the background. Change of state, get up, walk around, be out in nature, have a fire, and talk. What have you heard? Oh, I've heard this. And be invitational, be inclusive, and that's a good way for the stress level of everyone to go down, and it makes it so that you're not alone.
Right. Another thing that people need to be aware of is, just like during 9/11, the communication system may quickly be overwhelmed. Just like on 9/11, when everybody got on their cell phones at once and the cell network shut down, understand that that is a possibility of happening. The internet is going to be a very good source of giving people the ability to continue to communicate beyond the capacities of the telephones and cell phones. So keep that in mind. Also, another very good thing that people need to understand is there's some old school ways of talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
If you have CBs, ham radios, you are going to be a nucleus of communication in the first couple of days. So be prepared to get information out to,
essentially all over the world.
Yeah, to be, the center of information if you have those abilities. It's just going to be a fact. So those are the ways, simple, easy, to make the best time of the transition and to make it as easy as possible, and thereby making the transition as quick as possible.
And that's why I said get creative, because if you can almost play a game with your own state of consciousness and go, okay, this could be scary, but instead I'm going to look at this as an adventure and get creative. Well, how do I get through this? As moms, we're good at resources. We have to heat up the food or keep it hot, or, really good ideas. If you boil water, put it in a hot water bottle, and you can heat food that way or keep it warm that way. Just being creative and thinking like, where there's a will, there's a way, and being rooted in that knowing so that you're calm enough to problem solve.
And to take that one step further, people that are informed and ready for this transition, get out. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, get out of the house, go talk to your neighbors, make sure they're okay. Make sure that your communities are maximizing their resources during this time. Stores, restaurants, hotels, anything that can help people stay safe, stay secure, stay fed, stay warm or comfortable during this time is going to make it easy. What you're going to find out is really humanity is going to take over in this. And everybody that was interested in profit is going to see this as an opportunity to transition into taking care of their fellow human beings. We are going to be the best prepared. There are going to be people that shopping day was the day after the transition. They've got no food in the cupboards. They are scared. Their kids are upset. They've heard from their families, and their families are freaking out. You need to take those people in and help them and reassure them and say, we've known about this for a long time, actually. It just hasn't been popular opinion, but this is the way to deal with it. Here's a little food. Here's a bedroom. Here's a place to lay down. Here's a means of transportation if you've got to go pick up kids or move family. temporarily, give them what they need to feel better. And this transition will be as easy as possible. Now, I want to stress to everybody that this video, it's going to get attacked. There's going to be a level of disinfo that we haven't seen before. And it's going to be huge. Already, the resources that have been set against me have been seemingly unbelievable. More than I ever thought possible, or anybody would ever, take the time to go after me. But I have people that daily make comments on my YouTube to scare people into not believing what I'm saying. Drake has come under heavy, heavy attack. The people that profit from fear are going to work like crazy to set people back into a place of fear. We need to make them unsuccessful. Even if you are afraid, even if there is some level of fear coming about in your mind right now, you need to find the courage to get past the disinfo, to not listen to the white noise information, and understand that this is going to be the case. It's not hard to determine that the people that are in charge right now want this information not to get out. They don't want good preparations. They don't want people to believe that change is necessary. They want people to be afraid. And that's the way it's going to be. The presidency is going to be attacked. His birth certificate, NDAA, Obamacare, New World Order, the end of days, Revelations, it's all going to be used. And the weight of the dark cabal will show its full face during this time. That's okay, because if there's any last bits of information that hide the truth, they're going to be brought out, and they're going to be determined, and they're going to be undermined. And so I very much want people to understand that I'm okay. I'm putting myself on point, I'm taking the lead, and I understand that there's going to be fire from all angles that I'm going to have to put up with because of this information. I'm going to be discredited. I'm going to be called disinfo. I'm going to be said, oh no, not potentially. This is an inevitable reaction. So I want everybody else that is supporting this movement. I want everybody that supported the dollar donation causes that couldn't understand why a dollar was so important back then. But it plugged everybody into a level of awareness and a level of consciousness, and they invested something into the future. Well, that consciousness has elevated. And now, today, May 5th, World Liberation Day, later tonight, everybody's going to take that up to here. We're all going to work together tonight. We're going to go outside. We're going to look at that supermoon as the moon passes as close to the planet as it gets. And we're going to be in awe of the fact that all of this synchronicity is happening. And then we're going to go in to our homes. We're going to find a comfortable place. We're going to lay down, and we are going to see the future in our minds. We're going to see the future of what we want it to be. And we're going to manifest those changes because we as human beings, and I've said this time and time again, are infinitely capable. We've been led to believe that we're only capable of this much. We're going to find out that we're capable of this much. And then we're going to find out that we're capable of a whole lot more.
Infinitely.
Infinitely. But we're going to work together tonight to change the world. Steps are being put into place, actions are determined and going to be taken in the next month. How those actions turn out are dependent 100% on our level of awareness and our level of consciousness throughout the next 30 days. Do not find places of fear. Do not find places of worry.
Sit down, write out all the things you want to let go of, the things that you've struggled with. Focus on the solutions and moving towards them. Visualizing the solutions and stay goal-oriented.
And above everything, stay positive. Put down the disinformation. Put down the naysayers. Don't let them have any place in your consciousness, because those people seek to control you. They seek to control your fear and seek to put you in a place where you can't make a proper reaction. And that is the most important thing that's going to take place.
Get up in nature.
Exactly. If people feel so inclined to do so, the best way that you could help this video effort is to get onto YouTube and do a video response to this video. Say your opinions. Good or bad, I don't care. But here's what I know about the disinformation system.
They don't have a face.
They don't have a face. They don't have a name. They don't want to get on camera and say their piece. They want to do it from a place of anonymity and a place of convenience. Because really, they're only investing in their paychecks. They don't want to invest their reputations. If you want to help, if you want to see these changes take place, get online.
Email this out.
Email this to your family, your friends, your entire contact list, and do a video response. Put your face on the internet that says, you know what, I want these changes. I want to see something happen. I want a more positive world, and I don't want the people that are making us all afraid to be in charge anymore. I want new people to be in charge. I think it's safe to say that most of the people that are in charge of the world right now will not have the capacity to be in charge anymore. And if you're worried about Obama taking over and being part of the New World Order, honestly, from the information that I've got, I think he's going to take power and abdicate it back to the people. Just like has been attempted many, many times in history, where rulers wanted to give their power to the people, and it was corrupted by the people that could overthrow that power. I don't think President Obama is very interested in being ruler of the world. Certainly he's had a tough enough go just being the president.
All right.
So that's what we can do. Have hope. Have hope for the future. Visualize the future. Try to see it the way I see it in my head, because right now I'm excited. And I'm happy to see the changes finally manifesting, and that all of these paradoxes that have been created by the people seeking to keep control and seeking to keep money and power over individuals are making it so we have a path to take back control and to begin to evolve consciousness and to manifest the things that people have been talking about for months and months and months now. And I do want to take a special opportunity to say thank you to Drake. It hasn't been easy for an old man that participated in war back in Vietnam and is now being attacked like never before. I know how he feels.
Yeah, who may or may not be used to it on the internet and all of that kind of
right.
reality.
So, special message to Drake, take heart. It's tough right now, but I got your back, and Eva's got your back, and a lot of other people do. So don't worry about the Department of Disinformation and what they say about you.
And
it's not going to work.
And hopefully this message reaches some people who are back from war, who may or may not be experiencing post-traumatic stress. Know that you're not alone. Know that that is a very real experience to stress and trauma, and that there are ways to move forward, and it will take time. And just when you think like you're done, all of a sudden it jumps on you, and like I said, you end up in fetal position in the hallway, and you don't know why, and it really sucks. But know that you're not alone, and there are people who understand and don't think you're crazy, and you know, we really need to get behind our troops and all the people who are experiencing post-traumatic stress, and let them know that they're not alone, and it's okay, and it is a process, and it is about the conscious and subconscious and how the mind protects and kind of slowly starts to let people re-experience things. And there is a process of healing, so you're not alone. Don't give up. Know that you're not crazy and that you can get through it. And that includes depression and all of the things that aren't so fun that we experience as humans, but you know, really it's a language that we haven't necessarily been taught to understand. We've been taught to suppress and be afraid. So.
And one other special message to somebody who's going to know who he is when I say this. You said you thought that it should be you and not me doing this. Now's your chance, buddy. Step up. It's time. You can put your ass on the line, and it won't be so hard, I promise. You have anything else?
That's it.
Thank you, everybody, for watching this whole video. I realize it's about an hour and a half, but important stuff, and we will continue to be talking. I will be on the radio with Drake and Dietra tomorrow at noon Pacific time on Wolf Spirit Radio. And I will keep talking and keep answering questions and keep supporting everybody that wants to make these changes that I believe in.
Oh, and I think our guest for Monday, this Monday upcoming, 7th?
Yes.
Dean Clifford will get on to speak about law and the ins and outs of common law, maritime law, and
international law.
Yeah.
Since the President just signed America back up for it, we might want to get a little bit more familiar with how it's a good thing. So, yep, tune in, and we'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.